Today I'm at Oak Hill Cemetery in Jasper, Alabama. I'm here to visit the gravesite of a famous person. This person was not only an actor, but a comedian, an athlete, a teacher, and also a philanthropist. I'm talking about none other than George Lindsey, and a lot of people will remember him best as Goober on the Andy Griffith Show. Just want to give you some easy markings to find George Lindsey's grave if you're in the area. And if you'll notice this blue building across the other side from the cemetery by the main road there is a good way to find his grave site. So let's head on to George's grave. As we head toward George's grave site, I'd like to mention a few things about him. George was born in the town of Fairfield, Alabama, which is about 38 miles, I think, from Jasper, Alabama, where we are today. And he would die in Nashville, Tennessee from heart failure at the age of 83. I'd like to mention a few things that I didn't know about George Lindsey until I started doing research for this video. And that was that he attended Florence State Teachers College there in Alabama, and it's known today as the University of North Alabama. There he would study physical education and biology, and he would receive a degree in biology from there. And he's also established the George Lindsey Academic Scholarship for the University of North Alabama, and that shows he wasn't just interested in sports, even though he was a football star while he was there at the school. But he also has been inducted into the University of North Alabama Athletic Hall of Fame. And in 1992, the university would honor George with an honorary doctorate degree. Now we're going to take a look at his gravesite. As you can see from George's marker, it had the remark on it, "I'm glad I made you laugh." And yes, George Lindsey did that for so many people. You may have also noticed when I first got close to George's grave, there's a marker next to him that says Smith on it. And that means that George Lindsey is buried in the Smith family plot. You can also see from George's marker that his middle name was Smith, which is very appropriate for him to be buried in the Smith family plot, as George's mom's maiden name was Smith. And speaking of his mom, her name was Alice Smith Lindsey, and we'll see if we can find her grave here in the cemetery. And I'm sure that's the reason George has the name Smith. His dad, George Ross Lindsey, is buried in Birmingham, Alabama. And I wanted to start showing you some of the family graves here, but I'm going to have to see if I can find something to clean them off. It doesn't look like they've blowed off the leaves where they've mowed. There was nothing in the truck for me to clean off the markers with, so I'm going to try to get a little of it off with my hand if I can, so you can at least read some of the other names. And there, once again, you can see that it's a Smith marker next to George's big marker there. Well, I got a little bit of the blown leaves and all on the graves off, and I want to walk closer to some of those and let you know who they are. But as we're doing that, I want to mention a little bit more about George Lindsey himself. And I mentioned that he got a biology degree, and yes, George Lindsey for a while was a high school science teacher, so he did put that to use. He also served in the United States Air Force, which I didn't know until I was doing research for this video. I think the biggest surprise that I found out about George Lindsey when I was doing research is that it was quoted at two places that I read that Leonard Nimoy, that played Mr. Spock on Star Trek, made the comment that George Lindsey was the first one to be chosen to be Mr. Spock, and that he refused the role. And supposedly, it was also in the autobiography of Ernest Borgnine, which was one of George Lindsey's best friends for the last 20 years of their life, and he made the comment that happened also. And I did clean this off, and I think you can read enough of it. Even though his middle name was Anderson and George's senior was Smith, they both do have the name George Lindsey. And so this is his son's grave, George Lindsey Jr. George Lindsey Jr.'s marker also includes a Bible verse, which is 1 John 4:7. And it also has a quote that Minnie Pearl had, which was, "Take the back roads instead of the highways." I'm going to just label the next few graves because I want to talk more about George Lindsey in this video. And that is that George was best known as Goober on the Andy Griffith Show, but he initially tried out for the part of Gomer, and his interview went well enough that he would come back as Goober, which was supposedly Gomer's cousin, and he ended up being in more episodes of that show than Gomer even did. George had numerous roles in different shows. He had a regular role in the show Mayberry RFD, but he acted in such things as Gunsmoke, several episodes, The Rifleman, and even the show MASH, to name a few. He did several voiceover characters also for Disney movies, and he was on Hee Haw television show from 1972 to 1992, which is a total of 20 years. I've already mentioned that George was inducted into the University of North Alabama Athletic Hall of Fame, but he received numerous other honors as well. As such, in 1983, he was inducted into the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame in Birmingham, Alabama. In 1995, he was inducted into the Alabama Music Hall of Fame in Tuscumbia, I hope that's the way you say it, Alabama. He did sing some, and he even recorded a few records, but I think it was mainly due to him being honored with the Governor's Achievement Award that year. In 1997, he received what was called the Minnie Pearl Lifetime Achievement Award, which isn't a really widely recognized or established award, but it's a award that is given in Minnie's name and honor because of the spirit of giving back. And if speaking of giving back, I feel that George Lindsey would say his biggest accomplishment was that as a philanthropist is that he had raised $1 million for the Alabama Special Olympics. Yes, George Lindsey was a giving person and a kind person. If you're like me, you can still imagine George Lindsey playing Goober and being at the gas station there in Mayberry, or even him sitting at a table in a diner on that show with Andy Griffith and Jim Nabors, who played Gomer Pyle, and doing the impersonating song line of saying "Judy, Judy, Judy," or maybe you can even see him in the cornfield patch on Hee Haw telling one of his jokes. I'd like to close out with saying I do thank you so very much for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting and maybe heard something that you hadn't heard before about George Lindsey. I think he was a remarkable man. Always, thanks again for watching my video, and I hope you have a good day.